Hi guys. Well, as you can see, I'm stood on a mounting of wood chips. These are the wood chips that we use for the chickens, and once we obviously clean them out, it comes over here, and this is what we've sort of accumulated through the winter. But obviously, even though it does break down to some extent through the winter, and there'll be lots and lots of worms in here, it's not going to compost down properly on its own, because this is all carbon based. Even though it's got all of the chicken manure in it, it's all carbon based. And your compost, the ideal thing for your compost is to have a mixture of your browns, your greens, some water and some oxygen, and that's the 4 vital ingredients. Obviously there's no greens in this. Now your browns can be anything like sawdust, wood chip, shredded paper, shredded cardboard, anything like that. That can be your browns, a carbon base. And your greens can be all your clippings from within your plot, grass clippings such as these. Now, as you can see, this has been here, stood here for a little while. We've got 8 or 9 bags of it, and we've been collecting it so that we can make one big compost thing. After we take a rhubarb home, things like the rhubarb leaves, again, another good form of greens, so they'll get thrown into the compost. And also, as you can see here, any kitchen waste, so your potatoes and your potato peelings, any rotten fruit, tea bags, eggshells, things like that. Don't put any cooked foods or any fish or meat or anything like that in here, okay? The ideal mixture that you're looking for is around about 3/4 carbon based to 1/4 green. So 3/4 brown, so that can be your cardboards, your wood chips, your sawdust, things like that, your hays, and a 1/4 of grass, or your greens, your cuttings, your hedge trimmings, things like that, okay? Anything that's woody, it's going to take a lot longer to break down. Like I said, this has been sat in the compost bins most of the winter. However, as some of you know, we moved them back, so we emptied it out onto the ground here and we covered it over with a tarp, just to keep some of the moisture in it, because that is another important ingredient, is the moisture. There you go, there's a potato starting to go there off a slip. Without the water, it's not going to break down. But as we're digging through this, you'll see there are just hundreds and hundreds of worms there. So what we're going to do, I'm going to lightly fork over here, because we done this a little while ago, but the boards that we had in the front rotted, so we've got some new boards now. So I'm going to lightly fork over it to add a little bit more air, and we'll build it back up, and then in a couple of weeks time we'll turn it again. So I'm just going to get on with it, and we'll come back to the video when I need to explain something else to you. Okay, we've turned that over now, and we're going to start filling it up, and we're going to go for a layer about that thick of the carbon and a layer about that thick of the greens, and then we'll mix that in. And as I'm digging through this, you will see there are worms everywhere in it. Just one shovel turned over there, just to give you some sort of idea just how rich this chicken manure stuff is. Okay, so that little one that we've just turned over, guys, I don't know if you can see these, but there are lots of worms. In fact, I'll count them for you now and I'll throw them back down. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's 18 worms just in that one little shovelful. So you can imagine how many worms are in this whole thing. So they absolutely love this stuff. And they're going to help to break that down. The compost will get hot and we will lose some of the worms as it gets hot, but they will come back in as it cools down. If you see any plastics or anything, get them out there, it'll just save you sifting it later on. Okay. Just want to explain one thing, guys. As you can see, this grass, nice and green, already started to break down because it's been sat in the bags. And then we have this grass that's been here slightly longer, that's turned brown. That doesn't mean that this goes in as a brown, it still goes in as a green, okay? All it means is that the moisture has come out of it, but it's still classed as a green. It'll still give the nitrogen to the compost. But we can now chuck a load of this in. And you want to air this up, obviously it's been sat so it's festering a bit, you're going to get dirty, but you want to try not to have too many clumps in it. The secret ingredient here, guys, is oxygen or air. You really need to get it in. The more air in your compost, the quicker it's going to break down because the hotter the compost will get. Really, it's just like baking a cake. You mix the ingredients and then you let it improve or rise or whatever the case being. And it's exactly the same with compost. And there's no better way to feed your garden. Okay, that's enough of that for the moment. We're going to mix this in now, get some air into it all. Right, next stage now, put another board in. One other thing guys while I'm here, don't compact it down trying to get more in, because you're knocking the air out of there and all you're going to end up with is it not actually decomposting, or it's going to take forever to do. You're talking, instead of like 4 or 5 months, you're talking a year and a half. So get that air into it, and the more you turn it, if I come and turn this every 2-3 weeks, that'll be broken down into lovely compost within a space of about 2 to 3 months. The other ingredient is water, because the bag of grass clippings I've just put in has been dried out by the sun. Obviously we need to add water. There's quite a lot of moisture in this bark chip, but it needs to remain quite moist. So just give it a water. And now we're going to chuck a load of this on. I'm going to leave the video there for the moment. When I've got most of it done, I'll come back to the video. Well guys, as you can see, if I just bear me 1 second, most of that pile is gone and it's now all in there. So if I just pick a camera up, as you can see, it's well mixed. Sorry about the camera angle and everything guys, I'm trying to use the tripod and just hold it. But as you can see, it's well mixed, okay. We've got a mixture of the wood chips, the grass and all the other stuff that's in here. It's had a good soaking. That's a 4 foot square, or just under 4 foot square compost bin, and it's about probably 5 feet, just over 5 feet tall, because the ground inside the ground has been hollowed out a little bit on this one. So there's a lot of compost in there. I'll turn that now into that one in about 2 weeks time. Over the next few days I'll take what's left of these bags, which you can see there, and what's left of all of this. I'll scrape it into a pile, I'll mix it all up and I'll cover it back over, and we'll just leave that fester away. And that's about it. So anyway, thanks for viewing guys, and if you've got any questions, don't hesitate, give me a shout.